The voicemail sat in my phone for 3 days before I could bring myself to listen to it. My father's voice. The first time I'd heard it in 10 years. Delphine. It's your father. I know we haven't spoken, but I need to discuss something urgent. The business is in trouble. Serious trouble. Your mother and I have been exploring options, and we believe there may be mutual benefit in reconnecting. Please call me back. No apology. No acknowledgement of the decade of silence. Just, the business is in trouble, and suddenly I exist again. I played it for my husband Rafe while we sat in our home office, the one overlooking the city, in the penthouse we'd bought with money we earned ourselves. So, Rafe said quietly, Ambrose Ashford needs help. Apparently. The same Ambrose Ashford who told me at our engagement dinner that I was contaminating his bloodline with working-class mediocrity. That's the one. The man who stood up at our wedding, interrupted the ceremony, and called me trailer trash in front of 200 people before walking out. He actually said garage filth, if we're being accurate about the insult. Rafe laughed, but there was no humor in it. And now he wants what? Money. Connections. The help of the man he said you'd be scrubbing toilets for within a year. I looked at my husband. 42 years old, silver threading through his dark hair, laugh lines around his eyes from a decade of building something beautiful together. The man my family said would ruin me. The man who'd helped me become more than I ever could have been in their gilded cage. He wants help from the foundation, I said. Our foundation. The one that specializes in saving struggling manufacturing companies. Oh, the irony is delicious. Isn't it though? What my father didn't know, what he couldn't possibly understand, was that the decision about whether to help him wasn't mine to make alone. It belonged to both of us. The trailer trash and the disowned heiress. Equal partners. Just like we'd always been. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back 10 years, to the moment I chose love over legacy and discovered what I was actually worth. If you believe that love is worth more than money and that family is who you choose, not who you're born to, hit that subscribe button. Because this is about what happens when you walk away from everything you've known and build something better. My name is Delphine Ashford Cortez. That hyphenated name. That's my rebellion. My father still pretends the Cortez part doesn't exist. 10 years ago, I was Delphine Ashford. 26 years old, MBA from Wharton, working in strategic advisory at my father's company, which really meant attending meetings and learning to be a proper heiress. Ashford Manufacturing had been in our family for 4 generations. Industrial parts, precision machinery, the kind of business that sounds boring but prints money. We had contracts with automotive companies, aerospace firms, defense contractors. We were old money. The kind that comes with expectations, social obligations, and the unspoken understanding that you marry within your class. I dated appropriate men. Sons of other manufacturing families. Lawyers whose fathers played golf with my father. One particularly boring venture capitalist who talked about portfolio optimization at dinner parties. None of them made me feel anything except tired. Then I met Rafe at a charity car show. My mother's pet project, raising money for something or other by displaying vintage cars. I was there out of obligation, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, making polite conversation with donors. Rafe was there working. One of the mechanics hired to keep the vintage engines running during the show. He was under the hood of a 1967 Mustang, grease on his hands, completely focused. I stopped to watch him work. Something about the precision, the care, the way his hands moved with absolute confidence. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" said. He looked up surprised. "The car or the engine?" "Both. Most people just see the paint job. Don't understand what's underneath that makes her run." He wiped his hands on a rag. "You actually interested or just being polite?" "Both," I said again, and he laughed. We talked for 20 minutes about engine mechanics and restoration work and why old things are worth saving. He didn't know who I was. Didn't care about the designer dress or the family name. He just saw me. I found him after the show, asked if he wanted to get coffee. He said yes. We talked until the cafe closed, then kept talking in the parking lot until midnight. 3 months later he told me he loved me. 6 months after that, he proposed with a ring he'd saved for 8 months to buy. Not a diamond, a sapphire, because I'd mentioned once that I loved the color of the sky just after sunset. It was the most thoughtful thing anyone had ever given me. I said yes immediately. Then I had to tell my parents. The dinner was at our family estate. Formal dining room, 7 courses, my mother's idea of casual entertaining. I brought Rafe. He wore his best suit, the one he'd bought for his cousin's wedding. It was clean, pressed, appropriate. But it wasn't bespoke. And my father noticed immediately. "So," Ambrose said over the appetizer course, "Delphine tells us you're a mechanic." "I own a restoration shop, yes sir." "How entrepreneurial." The word dripped with condescension. "And where did you study?" "Trade school." "Community college." "Automotive technology program." "Worked full-time while I studied." My mother Genevieve made a small sound into her wine glass. Not quite disapproval. Worse, pity. "That must have been difficult," she said in the tone you'd use for someone overcoming a tragic disability. "It was good," Rafe replied evenly. "Taught me the value of working for what you want." "How admirable," Ambrose said. "And your family? What do they do?" This was the moment I'd been dreading. Not because I was ashamed, because I knew exactly how they'd react. "My mother works at a grocery store," Rafe said. "My father passed when I was 12. Heart attack. No insurance, so mom worked 3 jobs to keep the house." Silence. The kind that presses down on you like a physical weight. "I see," Ambrose said finally. "And you believe you're positioned to provide for my daughter in the manner she's accustomed to?" "Dad," I interjected, "we're not living in a Jane Austen novel. I can provide for myself. With the trust fund we established. With the position at the company we gave you. Everything you have came from this family, Delphine. Don't confuse privilege with independence." "I'm aware of my privilege, Father. That's exactly why I want to build something that's actually mine." Genevieve set down her fork with precision. "Darling, you're infatuated. That's understandable. He's charming in a rough sort of way. But marriage? To someone so clearly unsuited to our world. Think about your children. The genetic implications alone." "Genetic implications." I stared at her. "Mother, are you seriously suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that breeding matters. That's not snobbery, it's biology. Intelligence, work ethic, temperament, these things run in families. You'd be diluting generations of careful selection." Rafe's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. That's when Ambrose played his card. "Here's what's going to happen. You'll end this relationship. We'll position it as a mutual decision. No scandal. In return, we'll accelerate your promotion track at the company. VP within 2 years. Full partnership by 35. And if I don't, then you're choosing him over this family. Over your inheritance. Over everything we've built for you. We'll remove you from the will. Freeze your trust fund. You'll discover very quickly what life looks like without the Ashford name protecting you." I looked at Rafe. He was staring at his plate, hands clenched in his lap. Then I looked at my parents. At their certainty that money could control me. And at their absolute conviction that I'd choose wealth over love. "I choose him," I said. Genevieve actually gasped. "Delphine, don't be dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic. I'm making a choice. Choose Rafe. I choose building a life that's actually ours. I choose not being part of a family that measures human worth by bank statements and bloodlines." Ambrose stood up. "Then you're no longer an Ashford. Legally, financially, or socially. Don't come back here expecting us to bail you out when this fantasy falls apart." We left. Rafe drove us back to his apartment in silence. When we got inside, he finally spoke. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. Delphine, they cut you off. Your entire inheritance. Your trust fund. Your job. You just walked away from millions of dollars for me. No, I walked away from millions of dollars for us. There's a difference. He pulled me close. I felt him shaking. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this, he whispered into my hair. I know, I said. That's why I chose you. The next 6 months were brutal. We lived in Rafe's studio apartment. 400 square feet. One window. Shared bathroom down the hall. The building smelled like cigarettes and disappointment. I loved it. 'Cause it was ours. I got a job at a department store selling handbags. Minimum wage plus commission. The first time I got a paycheck with my own name on it, money I'd earned myself, I cried. My coworkers thought I was insane. They had no idea I'd never earned $1 in my life before that moment. Rafe's restoration business was small but growing. He worked 16-hour days, building his reputation, taking jobs other shops wouldn't touch. I helped with the books at night. Discovered I was actually good at business when it wasn't just playing pretend at my father's company. We got married at City Hall. Rafe's mother Mireille was there. So were 3 of his friends from the shop. My family was invited. They didn't respond. Until the ceremony itself. We were standing in front of the judge, saying our vows, when the doors opened. Ambrose walked in, Genevieve behind him. Stop, Ambrose commanded. Like he was ordering a servant. The judge looked confused. Sir, this is a legal proceeding. You can't just. I'm her father. I have every right to object to this farce. Dad, get out. My voice was shaking. I'm giving you one final chance, Delphine. Walk away from this garage filth right now, and we'll forget this happened. Rafe's hand tightened on mine. I felt him start to move to defend himself, and I squeezed back. Hard. Rafe is worth 10 of you, I said clearly. And I'd rather spend my life building something real with him than pretending to be important because I was born into your factory. Then you're not my daughter. Good. Because you're not my father. They left. Genevieve was crying. Ambrose looked carved from stone. We finished the ceremony. Became husband and wife. Walked out into the afternoon sun with nothing but each other and Mireille's blessing. It was the best day of my life. The next 5 years were hard work. Rafe's business grew steadily. I moved from sales to operations management at a small manufacturing firm, learned the industry from the ground up. At night we talked about what we wanted to build. Not just a business. Something that mattered. You know what your father's company always missed. Rafe said one night over cheap takeout in our slightly less terrible apartment. They had all this knowledge, all this infrastructure, but they only cared about profit. They never thought about investing in people. What do you mean? There are thousands of small shops like mine. Family operations. Legacy manufacturers. They're struggling because they can't afford to modernize, can't compete with overseas production. But they have skilled workers, community roots, real value. So what if someone helped them modernize? Provided capital, training, connections. It would save American manufacturing. And create jobs that actually pay living wages. We looked at each other across our $8 pad thai. Let's do it, I said. Do what? Build that. Foundation. Support small manufacturers. Be what your father never was. Actually help people instead of just extracting profit. Delphine, we barely have savings. Then we build the savings. We build the track record. We build everything from scratch. Together. 3 years later, we launched the Cortez Ashford Foundation for Manufacturing Excellence. Named with my maiden name second, because Rafe's vision led us there. We started small. Helping 5 shops in our first year. Then 20. Then 100. We provided low-interest loans. Modernization consulting. Training programs. Supply chain connections. Everything small manufacturers needed to survive. Word spread. We got grant funding. Corporate sponsors. Within 5 years, we'd helped save 3,000 jobs at 200 companies. The foundation became nationally recognized. I ended up on magazine covers. Rafe gave keynote speeches at industry conferences. We bought a house, then a bigger house, built lives that mattered. Together. And my parents watched from their estate as the daughter they'd disowned became successful on her own terms. With the man they'd called trash. Then Ambrose's voicemail came. I called him back after those 3 days of deliberation. Rafe sat beside me on speaker. Delphine. My father's voice was strained. Thank you for returning my call. What's wrong with the business? No small talk. No pretending. We were past that. We've lost 3 major contracts this year. Automotive companies moved production overseas. Our equipment is outdated. We need significant capital investment to modernize, or we'll have to shut down within 18 months. I see. I've researched your foundation's work. It's impressive. You've successfully restructured several companies our size. I'm calling to formally request consideration for your assistance program. The audacity was breathtaking, but also exactly what I'd expected. You want the foundation to save Ashford Manufacturing. I'm requesting we explore the possibility, yes. Rafe leaned forward. Mr. Ashford, this is Rafe. The garage filth. I have a question. Silence on the line. When you're considering our assistance, are you prepared to follow our recommendations? We restructure companies top to bottom. Management, operations, culture. Everything. I built this company over 40 years. And ran it into the ground, Rafe said calmly. That's why you're calling us. So if we take this on, you follow our lead. Or you can try to save it yourself. More silence. I'd need to discuss this with the board, Ambrose said finally. You do that. Meanwhile, we'll be discussing whether Ashford Manufacturing aligns with our foundation's mission. We help companies that demonstrate commitment to their workers and communities. I'm not sure your track record supports that. This factory employs 300 people in this town. If we close, those families lose everything. That's what got me. Not him. The workers. Families. The people who had nothing to do with my father's cruelty but would suffer for his failures. We'll review your application, I said. But know this, Dad. If we help you, it's not for you. It's for those 300 families. And you'll do exactly what we say, exactly how we say it, or we walk. Understood. One more thing. You're going to apologize to Rafe. On record. In writing. For every insult. Every slight. Everything you said about him. Delphine, I can't just. Then we're done here. Have a good bankruptcy. I heard him breathing on the other end. Pride versus desperation. Ego versus survival. I'll draft the apology, he said finally. Voice like gravel. Looking forward to reading it. Hung up. Rafe looked at me. You're really going to help him? I'm going to help the workers. Town. Families. He's just collateral benefit. He doesn't deserve your help. No, he doesn't. But those 300 workers deserve to keep their jobs. And maybe, just maybe, watching his daughter and the man he called trash save everything he built will teach him something about worth. The foundation board approved the application. With conditions. Ambrose would step down as CEO. Stay on as board chairman only. Rafe would oversee the operational restructuring. I would handle the financial reorganization. And the apology would be printed in the company newsletter. Publicly. My father agreed to everything. The apology arrived 2 weeks later. 3 pages. Single-spaced. Detailed accounting of every cruel thing he'd said, every assumption he'd made, every way he'd been wrong about Rafe's character and my judgment. I was prejudiced, narrow-minded, and cruel. I measured a man's worth by his bank account instead of his character. I told my daughter she was making a mistake that would ruin her life. She didn't. She made a choice that elevated it. I'm sorry to both of them. And I'm grateful they're better people than I deserve. It was published in the company newsletter. Sent to every employee, every client, every contractor. My mother called me after it went out. First time in 10 years. That was unnecessarily cruel of you, she said. Forcing him to humiliate himself publicly. He humiliated himself 10 years ago, Mother. I just made him acknowledge it. He's your father. He stopped being my father when he chose his pride over his daughter. Don't call me again unless you're ready to apologize too. Hung up. Haven't heard from her since. The restructuring took 2 years. It was brutal. Rafe basically lived at the factory, working alongside the crews, learning every process, identifying inefficiencies. We modernized equipment, retrained workers, renegotiated contracts, built relationships with new clients who valued American manufacturing. Ashford Manufacturing survived, thrived even. Employment went from 300 to 450. Wages increased. Benefits improved. My father watched it happen from his chairman's office. Diminished, humbled, saved by the people he'd called unworthy. Last month, the company hit its highest revenue in 15 years. The board threw a celebration dinner. Ambrose stood to give a speech. Looked directly at Rafe and me. 10 years ago, I told my daughter she was making the biggest mistake of her life. I was right. It was the biggest mistake. Not hers. He paused. I measured worth in dollars and pedigree. I forgot that the real measure of a person is what they build, who they help, how they treat people when they don't have to. My daughter understood that. Her husband understood that. And together they built something I never could. Something that actually matters. I'm grateful they were willing to help save this company despite how I treated them. And I'm sorrier than I can express for the years I missed. The grandchildren I haven't met. The relationship I destroyed because I was too proud to see past my own prejudice. He sat down. Didn't look at me. Couldn't. After dinner, Rafe and I walked to our car through the parking lot where he used to work on engines at charity shows. Where this whole thing started. Think he means it? Rafe asked. Does it matter? To you, I mean. Thought about it. About the girl I'd been. Desperate for her father's approval. About the woman I'd become, who'd built a life that didn't need it. No, I said. It doesn't. I forgave him the moment I chose you. Not for him. For me. So I could move forward without that weight. You're extraordinary, you know that? We're extraordinary. Together. That's the whole point. He kissed me in that parking lot, the factory lights shining behind us, the building humming with the workers we'd helped save. And I thought about how different my life would have been if I'd stayed. If I'd chosen money over love, comfort over challenge, approval over authenticity. I would have been miserable. Me. Exactly like my parents. Instead I got this. A partner who saw me as an equal. Work that mattered. A marriage built on respect instead of transaction. A life that was actually mine. My father called that trash. Call it treasure. Before I go, I want to say something to anyone who's been told they're marrying wrong, choosing wrong, living wrong because you're not following someone else's plan. Those people are wrong. Not you. Love isn't about bank accounts or social standing or meeting someone's arbitrary standards of acceptable. It's about finding someone who sees you, values you, and builds with you. Everything else is just noise. I walked away from millions of dollars. From social status. From family approval. And I don't regret a single second of it. Because what I built with Rafe, the life we created together, is worth more than any inheritance. Choose the person who makes you better. Who challenges you. Who values you for who you are, not what you have. And if your family can't accept that, build a better family. Kind you choose. The kind that shows up. My father's in my life now, peripherally. But he's not my family. Not really. My family is Rafe. The foundation team. The workers we've helped. The community we built. That's what matters. Not blood. Not money. Not approval from people who measure worth in dollars. Just love. And what you build with it. If this resonated, drop a comment about a time you chose love over approval. Subscribe for more stories about people who walked away from everything and built something better. Remember, the best revenge isn't destroying someone who wronged you. It's building a life so good they can't help but see what they lost.